Hello, hello, hello. It is Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central, and it's time for our weekly episode of Conversations with Commodores. And I know you know this hard hitting safety out of Tanner, Alabama. Reshard Langford has got our attention this evening, and we've just been talking for a minute or two. And I'm so pleased to have my new friend on the show tonight. Reshard, thank you for making some time for us. How's your day going?
Man, it's going well. I thank you for having me too, man. It was a pleasure meeting you in November out at homecoming. So to be able to do this a couple months later, man, it's a pleasure. Pleasure's all mine.
Oh, it's all mine, and I tell you that I don't know remember if it was homecoming or which game that we were able to connect, but those tailgates to me are invaluable. Those pregame tailgates the Black and Gold Club puts on right now, they're behind the on the football practice fields. But my gosh, you see Commodores from all generations who are there. You'll see a Dennis Harrison. You'll see, of course, Earl Bennett. You'll see guys who are Elliot Carson, guys who were much younger, guys who were much older, and I love that aspect. And I was my pleasure to get to see you back this fall there. What brought you back, or was it homecoming? I really can't remember which game it was. I'm sorry.
It was
Uh,
homecoming. Yeah, there was a celebration for the 15-year reunion
that's right.
for the bowl game, the Music City Bowl game that we
That's
got a
right.
chance to play in, and
Mm-hmm.
I missed it. Missed it for good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I got a chance to make it back in the November homecoming game, the first week, November the 4th. We played against Auburn. Um, but like you said, man, those tailgates are invaluable. You don't get a chance to do them when you're playing
Mm-hmm.
unless you are around afterwards and you get a chance to connect. But I spent the first half of the game and whatever time before the game really just going by and seeing people, man. It was so awesome. So
Probably
awesome.
got probably guys you hadn't seen in quite a while reconnecting, and that's the beauty of homecoming. That's the beauty of what the Black and Gold Club is doing.
Yeah.
But we'll get back to that in a minute. And I want you guys out there raise your hand if you know where Tanner, Alabama is located. Well, I know two guys on this call who do know where
Yeah.
that. Richard, I want you to talk about life in Tanner, Alabama growing up.
Man, it was how do you describe it? It was slow country living, but it was good. I'm one of two. I have a younger brother. My mom and dad raised us to be the best two young men we could possibly be.
Mhm.
Tanner High School, you don't hear much about, schools like this nowadays. Or when I mention it to some of the people that I get a chance to work around and be around now, it was K through 12. And I went through K through 12. My brother went through K through 12. And it's the same school for 12 years. You grow up with the people that you start school with and you go on from there. But um it's a place where everybody knows everybody simply because it's small. And it was good, man. It was good. It makes life, it made life for me. Uh it put me in a perspective of understanding what it's like to be connected to people. I will say that. Life is fast now, so it's a bit different.
No, you're so right. As we were talking beforehand, my daughters went to a small 2A school here in Birmingham, and in the basketball playoffs, they had the displeasure of coming up to Tanner and getting their heads handed to them. But I loved coming to that small town and that community and that school, and you could just feel it. You walked into the gym, and that community atmosphere was just it was so there, and that was just a
Absolutely.
beautiful thing. And it for the brief moments that I've been to Tanner, I got to experience that. We got somebody in the house to say hello to you. We got Coach Ladarius Banks in the house with us.
Coach Banks.
Coach
That's
Banks,
cool.
thank you
What's
for
happening,
stopping
man?
by, Ladarius. Um, Rashard, you played every sport of the season as a kid, as one does when we're coming up. I grew up in Dothan. I'm a good bit older, but we always played whatever season was the time to play the sport. That's what we did. And I
Yeah.
know that you played at least four different sports. There may have been others that the school offered or maybe the community offered. But what was your favorite sport as say a middle schooler or going into high school?
I really fell in love with football, but the one that I feel like I was best at was baseball, man. That was my first sport. I grew up playing. Um, and kept playing as long as I possibly could. I even tried to convince Coach Johnson to let me play with the boys at Vandy, but it never worked. So yeah.
And that, that was, I guess, Coach Corbin would have been in his first or second year season when you were a freshman. That'd have been a prime time to try to jump on there. But he knew, Coach Johnson knew you were too valuable over on the gridiron. He couldn't let you go over
Yeah,
the diamond.
he trusted me and I trusted him, and I know it was the right decision because it got me to where I was able to do something special.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, when was Vanderbilt on your radar? I know there were many other schools, but when did Vanderbilt just kind of stick there and you knew that that was going to be the school for you?
Um, when I visited, honestly, I started getting recruited pretty heavily my summer of after my junior year, going into my senior year of high school,
Mhm.
and honestly, it was a few other schools that, and I've had one other visit prior to that,
Mhm.
and I think what Vandy showed me on that visit was what my life would become,
Mhm.
and I was intrigued with that.
Mhm.
And that's really what caught my interest. So the men that were there, the people that were there, the message, I think the culture that was wanting to be built. And one of the things that was very, very important to me was making change. And I thought that that was an opportunity where going to Vanderbilt was an opportunity where a place where I could go and actually make a difference in a
Mhm.
program. And we certainly did, man. I think we did.
Well, I know that you did, and we're going to get into those good years in just a minute. But who was your coach that recruited you, and who was your coach, your position coach, once you got to campus?
Um, Robbie Caldwell
Mhm.
was the one who recruited me.
Mhm.
Yeah, Coach Caldwell would give me a call. Hey, boy, what you doing down there, boy, in Tanner? And the slang from South Carolina, I don't say the slang, the twang from South Carolina,
Yeah.
his open, just honest, vulnerable nature of who he was, man. He
Mhm.
showed who he was, and you can appreciate that.
And then who was your position coach?
My position coach, Coach Bryant.
Is that right?
Yeah, Coach
Well,
Bryant was my position coach. I
well,
still talk to him to this day. I spoke to him a couple weeks ago.
I was going to say you had a real good mentor right
Yeah.
there. But Reshard, we've got some other Commodores who've come in. We've got Russell Nicole that's with us. Hey, Russ. And we've got one of my teammates coming out of Tarrant, Alabama, Mark Stump Johnson, who came in my recruiting class. Good to see
Okay.
you, Stump. I'm glad you and both Ladarius and Mark have been on the show in the past. And Russ, I'd love to get you on here. Reshard, you go up to campus. What was it about the culture? What was it either with the football program or with the student body that really appealed to you that kind of sealed the deal, if you will, that you knew this is where you wanted to come to school?
Um, Aside from the allure of being able to play in the SEC
Mm-hmm.
and get a great education, um, like I mentioned, it was the people. It was the people there. Coach Johnson and what he taught and what he preached, the honesty of the coaches, um, and even some of the vision I feel like some of the coaches that I got a chance to be around had for me. Um, they started that cycle of me believing in myself.
Mm-hmm.
When you go to a small 2A school and you play all the sports,
Mm-hmm.
you get those opportunities because there's not a lot of people there, and
Mm-hmm.
um, it's good for other people to see the good in you, and I think that they did. So it didn't make it a tough decision
Mm-hmm.
at all.
And plus, you were what, 2 hours from home, give or take a little bit. So that's, I bet the proximity to from home may have helped a little bit as well. Didn't that allow for family to come up and see you play? Plus, it'd be easy for you to get back and forth to school.
Absolutely, no, that was definitely a part of it. I know I didn't want to go too far away, um, because I didn't know what that would be like. So
Yeah.
it was that definitely played into it, being closer to home.
Well, talk a little bit about, and I bring this up on most shows, it's the transition from being the big fish in a little pond with Tanner being as small as it is and you being an outstanding athlete and citizen in Tanner, that most folks who lived there knew you by the time you were coming through the high school years. But everybody is a star from their hometown when you get to the SEC. Was that a rough transition for you, or was it something that you saw what was there and you knew you needed to step up to be able to to stand out? How did you deal with that part?
And interesting, man, you asked that question. I actually felt more comfortable making a transition from high school
Mhm.
than from high school to college than the transition from college into the next level. And I know we'll probably get into that a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, but like I said, it was the people. Even with teammates, you get the back and forth every now and again just because of competition.
Mhm.
But um, it felt like a family. It felt like a family throughout my freshman year, my true freshman year, and even my redshirt freshman year, where we all wanted the same thing. I remember talks walking across campus with teammates about what we wanted to do with the program.
Mhm.
Um, and really that kind of spurred the confidence in, like I said, in myself and
Mhm.
what we could possibly do. And that's really what it was about. It was always about helping the brother next to me. So it didn't make the transition going from one space to the next because
Mhm.
we all tried to kind of build together.
And that class of the fall of '84 had some phenomenal athletes in that class. Who were some of those guys? I don't want you to try to remember everybody who's in the class, but just rattle off some names of some of your closer friends, I guess.
Of my class, man, you've had some of them on.
Hmm.
I think my class was Jared Fagan, Jeff
Hmm.
Jennings,
Hmm.
um, gosh, Josh Allen, Kaysen, Jackson Garrison. We had Chris Nixon. Um,
Another Alabama guy right there.
yeah, Mr. Alabama, right?
Yes,
Uh,
sir. Out of Pike County.
yeah. I'm trying to think of
Was Larry
who
Smith
else.
in the class, or was he
Larry Smith was younger.
I thought he maybe was the next year. Also, Mr. Alabama coming to
Absolutely,
the
yeah,
Capitol. Mhm. Well, it's
yeah.
you. Ultimately, you play in the defensive backfield during your years. Did they ever consider you for other positions, or did you always know that either safety or corner was going to be your spot, or maybe even linebacker? I don't know.
So the recruiting, like when I was getting recruited, I got the athlete tag,
Hmm.
and it was either running back because that's what I played mostly in high school. But because again, you got a small school, you play two ways. I play offense and defense,
Yeah.
and I got shuffled over to the defensive backside, which was
Hmm.
fine by me. Like I said, you can look back. Hindsight is always 2020.
Hmm.
Things play out, and it played out well for me. But the running back side, we had 3-star and a 4-star running back on in our recruiting class, and then they take this 2-star guy from Tanner, Alabama. It probably let's put him over there on the other side and see if he can help us out there. So, um, yeah, it ended up working out, and that's kind of how I look at it and deal with it.
Well, frankly, it's a pat on your back for being a teammate, to doing whatever the team needed, as opposed to, you know, look at me. This is my position as running back. I need to be here. I need to learn this. You were more about what it said on the front of the jersey as opposed to what was on the back of the jersey.
Right.
But Reshard, I got Kenny Cole out of Huntsville, got Marcus Williams, and Larry Leathers said to tell you hello. That
Oh, Larry.
Yeah, yeah, we got a bunch of Commodores in the
Ah,
house tonight.
that's too great.
What When you get over on the defensive side and you're not carrying the ball, but you're expected to fill such a big position, because in the SEC the ball's getting thrown around all the time. That transition sometimes when you're going to a different position, particularly the other side of the ball, isn't the smoothest. Do you remember a welcome to the SEC moment playing safety or DB that you're like,
Oh,
man, we got to make some adjustments here. I mean,
I
because
mean, there were,
well, we had some pretty good wide receivers also back in 04, 05 that you had to go up against.
yes. Oh man. No moment particularly, and it might be due to what you mentioned in the beginning. Like I like to hit. I wasn't the best cover guy. And yeah, who knows what I can remember now. But it's
Well, you clearly made that transition because you were named an All SEC freshman squad. So something had to have clicked for you. Do you remember any early game action, or you know, you're going from the high school Tanner? There might be 1,000 people if you're lucky at a game. To now you're down in the swamp, or you're in Tuscaloosa, or you're in Athens, and there's 80, 90, 100,000 folks. How did you, as a young guy, an 18-year-old, I guess you were, how did you focus on what was between the lines and not was it what was in the stands?
if I was to give credit on anything, it was the coaches, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they taught us how to watch film, how to make our reads properly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we had our success was because the coaches helped make things simple for us. And I watch this and I do this. If this happens, you do that. Um, in the package that we had, as long even with the other, guys that we had, you look at some of the coaches that are at Vandy now, Javon, hey, you get pressure on a quarterback, it's gonna make my job easy. So um no particular moments that I remember. I just remember that it wasn't as difficult as it may seem. And I think we give credit to the coaches for that. They spend, many hours a day helping prepare for our success. So
Well, and I agree with you that you had some special coaches, but you also brought some special talents to the equation as well. Do you remember a time when you didn't have to think as much and maybe the game slowed down a little bit for you? You were just reacting because you just kind of got the feel of the game, or you knew where you needed to be. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've always heard it where you're lowering your heartbeat, you're lowering your heart rate, if you will, and the game just kind of slows up because you've seen this. You know what to do. Did that just develop over time, or was it something that just kind of found you pretty quickly?
there were a few games where I felt like I was in the zone and felt that way. One particularly was a game at Vandy versus LSU
Mhm.
my freshman year, my
Okay.
redshirt freshman year,
So that would have been
and
fall of '05.
fall of 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a fun game. It was one against, one an SEC rival on top of,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they had who was their quarterback? Uh, was it Jamarcus Russell?
It might
Possibly, I can't remember.
it might have been in '05. I can't remember when he came out.
Yeah, but either way, that was one of the games I remember and had a big hit. I can't remember. I think I might have had an interception that game. So those were the most fun games,
And that
despite
was
the
also,
result.
Reshard, that was also your freshman year. The team went 2-9.
Yeah.
Your second year, 5-6, a good improvement. Dropped down a little bit to 4-8 in '07. I mean, in '06, but then back to 5-7 in '07. But '08 was the bowl team, the 7-6 team, and we're going to get to that in a few minutes. But my question is, as you're learning the position of safety in the SEC, were you patterning your game after any pros or any particular players who you liked the way they played? Or were you just trying to create the position and play the position the way you thought that was best for you?
Um, there were some safeties that I really patted I liked, Ed Reed out in Baltimore at the time. Um, I'm trying to think. Awesome safety. Dawkins out in Philly.
Oh, what a hitter. Brian Dawkins was all
Brian
pro.
Dawkins. I got a
Woo,
chance,
that's
and
two
what an
good ones
awesome
right
guy.
there.
What an awesome guy too.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, those guys, I'm like, all right, this is what I'm gonna try to do what they're doing. Hit some people and make some balls fly loose. And that was kind of the pattern I was going after.
Well, not to speed ahead, but I know you were with the Eagles. Was Dawkins still with the Eagles at the time you came through?
He had just finished when I made it
Oh,
there.
I
Yeah.
didn't know if you guys had played together or practiced together, or you got a chance to hang with him at all.
Yeah. Not in that setting. I got a chance to meet him at one of the Super Bowl events, I think that same year, my rookie year, and there was a gospel concert where football
Hmm.
players would form
Uh-huh.
uh, a gospel choir and we would sing. So I got a chance to meet him at
Oh,
one
I
of
got to
those.
know, is there any tape of you singing gospel?
God, I hope it's not.
Now, if any of y'all on this call have got something like that, we need to hear it. We do
Yeah.
need to hear. We got Reshard Langford out of Tanner, Alabama, played 0409, and then played in the pros for a few years. Thank you. Kenny Cole says it was Jamarcus Russell in 05, quarterbacking for LSU. All the talent in the world. All the talent in the world. And they just couldn't hang it in the NFL.
Yeah.
But wow, what a talent! Oh, we got John L. Thomas, we got OJ Fleming. They're starting to come out for you tonight, Rashard.
Okay.
Let's talk a
I
little
need
bit
to come
about
up.
life on campus.
Okay.
You're in this bubble, or we call it a bubble. You're with the football program. You're living. I assume you either have uh, football roommates or athletes that you live near. But what did you do to kind of get out of that regiment, to kind of let your hair down a little bit, to enjoy life on campus, to just kind of blend in, if you will? Were there moments or places that you enjoyed going to?
I'd like to say that there wasn't much time. I was on campus all 4 years, all the time I was there. Um, I had awesome roommates throughout my time there. My first year, I was Chris Nixon. Him and I were roommates our freshman year. Um, After that, I got a chance to be with Chris Williams, George, Brian Anderson, Fagan, um, and those guys. But it was just spending time with them. We'd hang out. We have get-togethers, watch fights. If we wouldn't do that, we'd go to movies or hang out with the other athletes.
Mhm.
That's the one thing I appreciate the most, to hang out with the basketball players and get a chance to know them, to get to know some of the women's basketball team, some of the golf team, some of the soccer team.
Mhm.
Um, so it wasn't much. It was just like it was a bubble nonetheless, but it wasn't just with the football players. We
Mhm.
all connected and got a chance to spend time together.
Mhm.
Uh, and something you can appreciate, but not getting out of it.
Mhm.
Uh, I look back and wish I had done more of it,
Mhm.
of getting to know the people outside of the sport.
A lot of athletes, myself included, feel that same way. You're so regimented, particularly during the season, that you're kind of like that hamster on the wheel, because you've got priorities. You got to get stuff done. And then those occasions where you do have some free time, man, you're tired. You want to just go back and take a nap or go to bed or whatever. But it is so true. The guys who've been on the show, who have taken advantage of networking or just meeting kids from all over the world, I think maybe that was a little bit more fulfilling of a college experience. But hindsight's 2020. We were young back then. You
Right.
didn't know different. But Rashard, we got some more Commodores coming through. I got to tell you, we got Jared Hawkins.
Jay
We
Hall.
we got Jim Arnold, who says to tell you hello. We got Kenny Cole. He says you speak just like a true Tanner Rattler when you said, "I'm gonna try and do what they do, hit some people." He loved it. And Kenny's based in Huntsville. Kenny is the one who's he played in the '70s. He's an attorney up there, a good friend, and he is hosting. He and his wife Jill are hosting Coach Lee and staff and others on Friday, February 23rd, at their house in Huntsville. I've put in our Facebook group how to sign up for it. The next day on Saturday, the basketball team takes on Florida at noon, and there's going to be a watch party at one of the local maybe wings places or restaurants up there. So it should be a lot of fun weekend in a couple of weeks. Um, Reshard, what did you like most about playing football for Vanderbilt and playing football in the SEC? When you look back, what was it that gave you the most joy?
Um, Winning with my guys. I couldn't say there was anything that was more joyful. Like you mentioned Jayhawk. I feel bad that I hadn't talked to him in a couple of months. And, I stayed connected. He was one of my roommates for a couple of years. We were roommates together. And it's just that time that we don't get a chance to spend together anymore. And those were the most valuable times. Talks in the locker room, pumping each other up, high fives, and, working through life a little bit together too, because I mean, there were times where I might have been down in the dumps about a situation, or any of them might have been down in the dumps in the situation, and we all leaned on each other. If it didn't have to be football, so I think those were probably the most memorable times about being there.
It's beautiful what you just said, because most of the memories like that, those core memories that we rely on when we reflect back on those times, it wasn't on the field. It was
No,
everything else. And it was the brotherhood that we build with our teammates and those lifelong friendships. I'm sure you're in text groups with a lot of those guys. And tell me if I hit this right. In some of these text groups, all you have to do is bring up one word about some event or some funny occurrence or something y'all went to, and that just sets off a flood of texts and laughs and smiles. And to me, Reshard, that's one of the most important things about playing team sports, either in high school or college. Because doesn't it
absolutely.
take you back to a much simpler way of a time in your life, before we're adulting?
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. When life was a little more fun, man. It does,
You
and it,
know,
it keeps you young.
well, when you're 18, you don't even know what a mortgage is. You have no idea
No.
what making car payments and
Man,
stuff like
what?
that. But
Yeah.
but it also, I'll tell you this for me, and tell me if this is part of your experience. Going through the good and the bad with all of those guys, it just brought you so close. And even like you said with Jayhawk, you hadn't talked to him in a while. You guys could pick up the phone and just pick back up with whatever, like you'd
Yep.
just seen yesterday.
Yep.
Now, I
Every
want
time.
you to I want you to take us into a game, into a defensive huddle, and take us through the signals coming in and take us through a play. What is,
Ooh.
from your perspective, just give us an idea of how's the play getting, or the defense that's being called. Is it being signaled in? Is somebody running it in? Typically, how are you getting your defense?
Man, that one's tough.
That's all
The
right.
first the first thing that comes to my mind is Falcon,
Okay.
a blitz with a nickel. And I see Dalron speed wearing nickel package, and how that went. Who would call the plays? I always call down the distance. The
Was it
linebacker got the plays.
was it being signaled in from the sidelines
Yeah,
typically?
it was being signaled in. Yeah, the
Okay.
linebacker had the wristband on for the plays.
Okay.
We make our adjustments. We have a call based on adjustments. But man, to
All
think
right.
back to those defenses, I couldn't
All
pull
right.
it
I,
back.
I don't you don't have to tell me or recall a specific defense, but you break the huddle.
Yeah.
You're heading back to your position and you're surveying what the offense is showing you. Who in the defensive backfield is talking to the others? How are you communicating? Who is doing that?
Me and the safety are talking to each other. So either me and Ryan Hamilton, I almost said comrade.
Ryan
Me
was
and
on the
Ryan.
show. Ryan
Yeah,
was
I saw
on the
that.
show a while back.
Yeah, me and Ryan would, get the call. I was always lined up on the strong side, so I'd look for the tight end. We'd see where he was.
Mhm.
Um, Obviously, nickels on the slot, and the corners were out. And we usually show cover two and walk down in the box if needed, or play too high. It was always dependent on that. So we, if we couldn't hear, it was
Mhm.
hand signals, and gosh, man, I miss it. I miss it a ton. Yeah,
We all do. We all
yeah,
just want one more play, but
just
we
one
don't want
more.
it at our current age. We want it at the age we
We
were.
wanted at that age. Yeah, we
Now.
need time machines.
Yeah, because at the current age, hamstrings and Achilles are just a killer.
Right.
What I want to, I don't want to speed through anything, but I want you to come forward. Let's go. We'll come back to the bowl game and the rest of the Vanderbilt years, but I want to talk about the current version of you. What do you do for exercise? What is it that you,
Man,
I know you travel. So what do you do to have a routine?
I still train like I play, in all honesty. I don't get a chance to do it so much now, but anytime I'm training, I'm either I don't run as much. That's one thing I don't do. I'll get
Mhm.
on a bike because my current role and profession, I'm a strength and conditioning coach.
Mhm.
So um, I try to stay in shape. My big thing as a strength and conditioning coach, I got to give one good rep of whatever it is.
Mhm.
Um, Either it's on the floor in the gym or it's on the court. And
Well,
um,
I want you to pause because folks may not know the sport or who you're strength and conditioning for. So I don't want them to assume this is for professional football players. So share a
now
little bit about who you work with.
I made a transition, but no, man, I'm working in tennis, man. I'm working in tennis now.
Yeah,
And
not just any tennis guys. He's with the US TCA. So let's talk a little bit about that.
yeah, so I work for the United States Tennis Association. I've been doing that. It'll be 5 years in October
Hmm.
that I've been with the organization. And it's been one of those things that it was kind of like going to Vandy. I will equate it to that. It was new. It was different. It was something that I felt was going to allow me to grow and give me a different experience in life. That was exactly what Vandy was for me. So in a time where I spent a majority of my life really focused on all of the sports and football, this transition that I've made in the past 5 to 6 years has helped me use what I've learned at Vandy to connect with people, um, use the experiences that I've had as a player and as an athlete, and transitioning from all those different areas to engage with the struggles that these people and these players have. And I've gotten a chance to experience, different cultures. The one thing that we were really, really big on at Vandy was, getting the culture. And I think that's what Coach Lee is actually focused on right now as well with, him, his coaching staff, and getting the right people in the door so that you can build the right culture so that they can make progressions in the seasons and build on what they've done the last years. And um, this culture is one that is challenging because it's so many different types of people from different areas of the world. And I got a chance to travel the world a little bit. So it's been a blessing in disguise, man. But everything has its challenges, and it's been good, though.
Well, I bet it's taught you how to deal with people. And I'm not asking you to name names, but I have to assume that there's a lot of prima donnas on the tennis circuit. And I
Yeah.
don't know how, in your capacity, do you see that aspect of it, or do they kind of straighten up because they know that if they're working with you, they got to put in the work? They're
That's,
professionals.
yeah. It's funny you say that. I've actually been having a conversation with another coach who is not with us, but he works in the same industry. And he talks about confidence. And I work closely with a physical therapist,
Mhm.
and she made mention of the differences between the coaches. And she was just like, you demand authority, you demand stuff from these athletes, and
Mhm.
these kids they're not going to mess with you.
Mhm.
So there's a bit of respect in that, as well as this isn't my first rodeo. I may not have done it in your arena, but I understand what it takes. And there's a bit of respect and trust in that. So it's been it's been cool. It's been really cool.
Well, and I'm not trying to age you, but you are a good bit older than the average tennis pro that you're dealing with. You're probably in stature a lot larger. Plus, you got this refined beard mustache going that I know gives you that air
This
of
helps.
authority.
This helps a ton.
That's right. That's right. Just wait till it starts graying in a little bit, then you'll really be cooking. Guys,
I know.
I've got Reshard Langford. Right now he's out in California because of his job, and we're very thankful that we've got some time with him. And I didn't mean to move around a lot in the timeline, but I want to go back to your junior and senior years. You're playing for Coach Johnson. Your class is one of those rare classes that, because of the turnover of head coaches in the Vanderbilt program history, not many of us. I was fortunate to have one head coach the whole time. Coach Watson Brown was my coach. You've got Coach Bobby Johnson, who, for the first time in decades, frankly, was creating a winning culture. And you guys go 5 wins, 4 wins. Now let's go to your junior and senior years and talk about the expectations in that clubhouse, in the locker room by you guys, that is setting the tone that eventually would culminate in the Music City game against Boston College, the win at the end of your career.
Yeah. We had got to a place as a team where we expected to win. We had so many close games those years that we didn't get a chance to pull out. And I think what happened in the bowl game was just that we couldn't have this happen again. We couldn't allow us to be so close and not finish. And that was honestly one of our chants. We break it down, focus, finish. And that ended up coming into fruition. And I think what you mentioned, Coach Johnson being able to be there with us for that amount of time and get in the type of guys that would do just that, would have great focus and wanted to finish, um, allowed us to have success that last year especially for the year of the bowl game.
Your junior year, you guys get to 5 wins after beating Miami of Ohio in late October your junior year. So we got 4 games to win that coveted 6th game. And I don't mean to bring up bad memories, but the reason why I bring it up, we lose all 4 of those last games to Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, and Wake Forest. And those last 3 games were so close; they were all within a touchdown. What did that, as you head into the off season, going into your senior year, the 08 season, Reshard, what kind of environment, what kind of vibe was going on? I know there was disappointment because we didn't get that 6th win that year to go to a bowl, but I want you to kind of share. I don't know if it was a hunger, if it was just being mad, or a combination of things that propelled you guys going into the next season that ultimately led to that bowl game.
You mentioned it. You took the words out of my mouth, but it was hunger, a little bit of disappointment. I mean, you have expectations for yourself and you fall short, you become disappointed. And I think all of us carried a little bit of something. And the one thing that we did was believe. We believed that we were good enough. And we fast forward to even these years, you talk about the mental health stuff and athleticism. And that's a big key. That's a big key to success with athletes nowadays, is how much that they believe in themselves and the people around them believe in them. And the people that's next to them, meaning their teammates, believe like they do. And that's what was happening. We saw that we were this close and we didn't give up hope.
Well, clearly going into your senior year, those first 5 weeks were a magical time on campus. I know you remember the college game day coming for the Auburn game, that big win.
Yep.
Can you take us to that game a little bit that day, or how, just what was the vibe like in the team or on campus? Because that was a magical, memorable day.
We were not going to lose that game. We stated it from the beginning of the week. We knew we had game day. It'd be a disgrace to have college game day come there and lose that game. So that was, I don't think that could have been anything else to happen for us to lose that game. Like, that's how determined that team was.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But on the other side, it seemed like that game or that 5 week period seemed to have taken a little bit of air out of the team, so to speak. I don't know if that's the right word, because then the next several weeks, other than beating Kentucky, it was a tough back half of the season until you get to the bowl game. So can you kind of take us, I guess, to the bowl game? Because that's, I mean, I was there and spent, I don't know, 50, $60 on hot chocolate for me and the girls, because that was one of the coldest ball
So
games
cool.
I've ever sat through.
Yeah. I've come to learn, and I don't think about that particular span of time.
Mhm,
But if I'm to look back and analyze, I see it very much in what I get a chance to do now. You have success,
mhm,
and the work that you put in to have success, if you can't reset that so that you can do it again,
mhm,
it takes a while to get it back. And I think that's kind of what happened with us that year. We worked so hard to prove so much to so many different people that I think that the focus ended up getting lost in proving stuff to other people
mhm.
that we needed to turn around and prove it to ourselves again and again and again. And it took us a bit to catch back up. And yeah, like the intimidation factor, even if you look at some of the games this past weekend in the playoffs,
Mhm.
um, that's how I would analyze that. It's just like you get there, you've reached the top of the mountain, and you look out over the valley, and it's just like, oh, that's it. Versus
Mhm.
being grateful, this is wonderful. Let's continue to do this.
Mhm.
And we ended up, like I said, we ended up, of course, and we ended up making it to where I think we wanted to be. It could have been different. We could have, you know, had that reset and got a couple more wins in, but um, we did something special, and I don't think that's to be taken lightly. Yeah.
You know, one of the things that we all strive for as athletes, regardless of your sport and what level you play, to be successful as part of the equation. I think you have to have a confidence in your own abilities. You
Yes.
have to have, whether you're braggadocious and you want to share it and wear it and let everybody know, or your style is more reserved and you're introspective and you just, the way you operate is that you're quiet about it. It doesn't matter. We all have some confidence. But when we lose that confidence, and I'm not a sports psychologist at all, I just talk a lot. you got to have you got to keep that confidence, or you got to regain that confidence to be successful. And my question is, with your current position with all those professional tennis players, is that part of, I guess, your method, or not your method, your message, that you have to instill in some of these players? Because it's an individual sport, maybe you see it more so than you do in a team environment. So I don't know if I'm making sense, but do you
No,
do you deal with that?
you make a ton of sense. You'll remember this Commodore. You remember Kevin Joyce?
Sure.
Orlando guy. I got a chance to see him probably 3 months ago out in Orlando, and we were having a conversation, and he had a buddy of his with him,
Hmm.
and they work in that sports psych, mental health space.
Hmm.
Um, and he asked me about, what do you think, Lane? What do you think about this stuff? I'm like, I don't. As much as I coach, I don't coach the athlete. I coach their hearts. I coach their minds.
Hmm.
And it's very much about them building confidence in self. Because once that goes away, it's going to be hard to get back. But the confidence has to be internal. It can't be external
Mhm.
and being result oriented. And I see it a ton. I see a ton of, oh, I didn't make this, I didn't win this, or so what? You're still you. And um, I think that's a big piece into the success that you see people have. You know, they trust the work that they've done and they've kind of laid it out on the line. When you don't give it all, it's hard to say you gave it all, right? So
Mhm. You know, whether you're an athlete or you're in business for yourself, or you run corporations or whatever, I think you all have to have that confidence as part of your makeup, your mental makeup, if you will, to be successful. And I'm sure that's one of the things, as you just described, you have to deal with the on the tennis tour. Reshard, what looking back now, what was it? Having gone to Vanderbilt, you got your degree, you later went on to Indiana and got the MBA. But what was it about being at Vanderbilt now as an older person, when you're looking back, what are you most proud about being affiliated and being a graduate of Vanderbilt University?
you know what? I'm so proud of being a Vanderbilt Commodore. Simply because, man, how could this connection have happened? It couldn't have happened in any other way other than you being from Vandy and I being from Vandy.
Mhm.
And the people that I get a chance to meet, I got a chance to meet a guy 3 weeks ago that's in this private former athlete network group.
Mhm.
And the first person I click on the directory to try to get some information about this new thing that I'm going to be a part of,
Mhm.
Vandy baseball player,
Mhm.
Andrew Harris. And I'm like, look, this is something that I hold dear to me. And this
Mhm.
is something that people who I believe have went to Vandy and still hold dear to them too. So um, if there's anything special, it's just being a part of that club, whether you play the sport or not. And anytime I see a Vandy hat, I'm going up no at Vanderbilt. I actually met a kid today who's going to go tennis for Vanderbilt
Mhm.
out here in California. So um, it's something that I'm extremely proud of from where I feel like I came from. It like I didn't grow up in the metropolis. I didn't grow up with, you know, everything at hand. So
Mhm.
I felt like I earned a way to get there. And with the work that was done to get there and the people that I've met in the process and the connections that I've made, it's something I'm extremely proud of.
That's excellent. Excellent. You were kind of a little spotty on the internet, but I think you're with us now. Rashard, we've got just a couple of more
Yeah,
minutes.
sorry about that.
It's
Okay.
okay. I want to transition a little bit of you signing with the Eagles and getting to play with the Lions and the Chiefs and the Rough Riders over a 5 or 6 year period. And I guess two real topics about that. The transition from high school to college is one thing, but the transition from SEC football to the NFL, I think, and I don't have that experience, of course, is a whole different animal, if you will. Talk a little bit about that transition. When was it that you being unsigned or undrafted, but signed with the Eagles and held on for a few years? What was that transition like for you?
It was tough. Like I mentioned earlier, I think that transition was tougher than going to college.
Mhm.
Uh,
No, I don't know if we
and I
lost.
can
Shard, you still
see the
with us, bud?
perspective of what I am. It does say
Okay,
that my connection is a bit spotty.
that's okay. Back up about 10, 15 seconds, what you were saying about the transition.
I mentioned that it was tough. It was tough because to some degree you feel alone.
Mhm.
As much as you have a brotherhood within the team, there's a business aspect to it. And that was something that was always in the back of my mind, just because I was a freshman all SEC, and as the years pass, notoriety kind of dwindles a bit. You think that you're going to get drafted, and that doesn't happen. But you make it. So there was a bit of a decline in confidence as I was going throughout the years, and you see people go in and out daily, if not weekly,
Mhm.
um, that you might like and you want to connect with, but this is about who we can get in to help this organization.
Mhm.
Not can we get people in and let's develop people.
Mhm.
And it was a bit different, especially being an undrafted free agent
Mhm.
versus being a, you know, top 3 to 5 round draft pick. So it was different.
The last thing I wanted to,
Difficult.
can you hear me okay? Reshard, you still with us?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Okay. The internet's going in and out. That's something we can't control. But the last thing I wanted to talk about is not, it's not a fun topic, but it's something that happens with every athlete. It's that point in your career when you know that it's time to transition out of the sport and into, I'll call it civilian life. It's one of three things typically happen. You get cut, you get hurt, or you get to the point where you just don't enjoy it anymore and you just stop playing. And not to bring up or open any old wounds, but I want you to talk about the transition out of playing professional football and into the rest of life, into the civilian world. What was that hard for you, or was it something
For
that
me,
you
but
saw coming and prepared for it?
it was difficult for me because a ton of my identity, and this is
Mhm.
something I speak with these athletes that I get a chance to work with now.
Yeah.
Uh, I perform the role of strength coach,
Mhm.
but I am in a position to help these young people do the things that, because all of this will come to an end. Sport will come to an end.
Mhm.
Uh, but I had no sense of identity of self, who I was outside of football. So it made the transition difficult. I'm more confident in that now more than a beautiful wife, and I love them dearly. And that is my priority. Honestly, what I can do and how I can take care of them and how I can lead them in all honesty. So, um, yeah, it took a while
Mhm.
to make all that stuff happen, but yeah.
Well, I was going to also say or bring in that having that family, not safety net, but just having that family to transition with, did that help with things? I know that you have a supportive wife and you have two young children. Did that help with things, or did that make it harder because you knew you weren't going to be playing football anymore, but you had to move on to whatever was next in store for you?
Yeah, I would say I was blessed to have to deal with that
Mhm.
alone for a little bit. And um I met my wife about 3 quarters of the way through fully having the identity of self. And she to the struggle
Mhm.
as much as I got a chance to deal with it myself. And it's something that, like I said, I get a chance to teach.
Mhm.
I get a chance to teach the athletes. I'll get a chance to teach my children. I'll get a chance to share with other people who struggle with it. Um, so it's it's there's beauty in it. There was so much beauty in it, I would
A-
say.
And you're sharing it right now, and that's what I appreciate about our conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Well, Richard, I could keep you here all day, but I know we got stuff we got to do, and I want to be respectful of your time. But gosh, it's so good to spend this hour with you and learn some of your journey coming out of Tanner, Alabama. Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you
man.
for being here tonight.
Thank you, man. I appreciate you so much.
Absolutely. And I hope that our paths cross again soon. Hope we don't have to wait till football season next. But I know you're a traveling guy with the work that you do. But keep it up. We're very proud of you being a Commodore for the way you represented us on the field and have all these years off the field. So continue
Let's
to
go.
anchor down. We'll see
Anchor
you
down,
guys
man.
back next Tuesday night. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.